Hey y'all, and welcome to Down Home Dirt, the show where we dive deep into the journey of entrepreneurship with the people who took the plunge into owning a small business and all the ups and downs that come with it. I'm your host, Desta, and today we're joined with Melissa Overton with medicaltraining.me. Thank you for letting us come out and film in your, I almost said studio, I meant office.
Yes. I'm so glad that I'm getting the opportunity. I'm hearing all these amazing opportunities out in the community that you're doing with the entrepreneurs, and I appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you. I just try to make sure that we're inspiring, educating, and connecting them so that they can grow and flourish and all the things.
I love it. That's perfect.
So let's start with you. Tell us about yourself. How long have you lived in Johnston County?
I actually am a Johnston County native. So, yeah, a lot of people don't know that. I actually was born and bred on 39 Highway in Selma. So they said if you're truly Johnston County, you know that's not Selma, it's the Corbett Hatcher community. But I grew up out here in the country, and Mom remarried when I was in high school. So I ended up finishing high school in Raleigh.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people think I'm as being from Raleigh, and I said I was going to be a big city girl, and I made it to East Carolina, and then I made it to Wilson as a big city girl, and I ended up back in Johnston County. So became a Clayton native in the mid 2010s, 2011-ish, 12, one of those years.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there.
No, that's great. And tell us about your business and what you do.
So I'm a critical care nurse by background. So I worked at East Carolina in the ER as a nursing assistant and unit secretary, and I was a volunteer EMT while I was in college. And when I graduated being a big city nurse, I made it to Wilson. Became a night shift ER nurse because I was mouthy and opinionated. I kept getting promoted into different positions with education and leadership, and then kind of burned out on that and went to the intensive care. So about 2011-ish, I injured myself at work. I tore my rotator cuff working on a patient in an emergent situation, and had to figure out what I was going to do next. And part of my career as a nurse had become a nurse educator, teaching everything from life-saving classes to dealing with disaster preparedness, to talking about leadership and how do we work with nurses who are training other nurses. So I took all of that knowledge and information and started medicaltraining.me officially in 2013, but technically probably 2012, somewhere around there, I had started teaching a little bit. So that's how it all began.
I feel like that's something that as entrepreneurs we kind of dabble in. It like becomes a hobby or something, and then we're like, no, we're full-fledged into it.
Yeah, it's the side hustle thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to start this out as my side hustle. I love, if you ask me my career-wise, I'm always going to be an ER nurse. That's like who I resonate with the most as far as my nursing identity. But when I was able to learn to teach those life-saving classes, I loved being in the classroom and being able to talk to a group of people that like all of a sudden the light bulb came on and they realized it wasn't about getting a certification, it was about how to save a life and how to be more prepared to respond in a crisis situation. And I kind of missed that when I went back into bedside care in the intensive care unit. Learning tremendously, I would not trade it for the world. But missed the teaching component, was actually teaching with another company on the side some. So when I had the opportunity to do it my way, I started jumping on it. It literally started in a Zumba class. Like it's the weird stories. So I'm in the Zumba class, and the girl's like, your voice sounds familiar. And I'm like, oh boy, because I have a big mouth. And she said, oh yeah, you were the CPR lady back in the day, and we used to send our company there, but since you left, it's been harder for us to get into classes. And I said, really? I've been thinking about getting a few mannequins and teaching some on the side. And she was like, well, let me know. Well, like, go do our class, everything. A month later, she's like, so have you bought those mannequins yet? And I was like, she's being serious, right? Wow. So I was like, you know what, I will. So that night I went home and ordered some mannequins, and that is literally how medicaltraining.me started, was grabbing a couple of mannequins, training a few people, and going, you know what, this is what I'm really passionate about. As a side hustle, I said I did not want to start my own business until my kids were out of high school because it's demanding, right? You're an entrepreneur. Yep. So I knew that it would be very demanding. And so I wanted to wait till they were finished with school. And as life would have it, Thomas was in the first grade and Laney was in pre-K when medicaltraining.me was formed. So just tell God your plans and he'll laugh at you, right?
Oh, 1,000%. Like my daughter was 5 years old, and I was, a lot of people know this, escaping a domestic violence relationship.
Okay.
And I was like, well, let's do it. I mean, I was homeschool mom, I was stay-at-home mom, but that was my ready moment. I gotta
I'm
go.
so proud of you.
Thank you.
Mine was definitely not domestic violence, but I was also leaving a marriage that had fallen apart. So there's this moment that I think as a mother and as a woman, you just go, you know what, let's do it. I've got to do it. I've got to give them something a little more than what I've got, and I've got to model something differently. So,
1,000%.
So I love that. I love that.
Well, thank you. I also felt like this is my second time leaving a domestic violence relationship. My first 2 children, same father, did that, and the second one, I was like, you know what? We're not going to give her the same experience. We're not doing any of those things, and I was done. And I was like, I started the business literally a month before the shutdown.
Yeah.
But I was determined.
Yeah.
And so I think it was 4 or 5 months after that, I ended up being able to leave the relationship, and my business had already been started.
I'm so proud of you.
And so here I am, was it 4 years later now? Still killing it.
I love it. And that's the whole thing. It's like when you think about entrepreneurship and you talk about what we have in common, no matter what trade we're in, it's really about tenacity. Right? I was speaking to a women's group in Holly Springs yesterday, and they were talking about how do you 3+ years as a business stay successful? And I'm like, it's about building relationships, it's about being tenacious, and it's about resolving conflict. So my whole little mini education session with them yesterday was talking about communication and conflict resolution, because as a business owner, how you manage things definitely comes in and impacts your future business. Because there are times when I tell people I want to go off script and all the rap lyrics coming in my head, all of them, I just and I'm like, don't say it, because I told them there's this pillar of professionalism, and it's a balancing act. Just one swoop will knock you down. So
absolutely.
Right. So from an entrepreneur perspective, good for you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That is so awesome.
I'm a little teary-eyed.
I know. I got a little emotional there for a minute. I was like, but clips, talk amongst yourselves.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just so proud of you, because so many people get caught up in it. And I grew up, I'm adopted. There's such a backstory, but I'm adopted within my family, but I grew up in a domestic violence type of situation. So I very much know, and it takes such courage to step out and to innovate and do. And, and I've talked to other women that said, you know what, I had to do something. I had to figure it out. So that's how they kind of grew into whatever it is that they do now and they are now. So.
No, absolutely. And it takes a lot of therapy to realize that is not normal. I grew up in it too. My family loved to do dinner and a show where the cops would show up.
Oh, nice.
Dinner time.
Yeah, dinner and a show. I like that.
And I'm like, okay, cool. This is not normal at all. And when I started speaking about it, that's when I started realizing that it's not normal. And I was 23 years old when I had started talking about it with someone that I was dating at the time. And he was like, you do realize that none of that is normal. And I was like,
but it was your normal.
Yeah, I was like, no. How would I know that?
Yeah.
You know? And I had 2 children by the time I was 21 years old.
Yeah.
I didn't know a domestic violence relationship.
Right. And the fact that you want to break that pattern for your children. You're right, because that's what people don't understand the world is everybody's normal is a little different. And so it creates a level of relatability when you're working with people. That when you have that moment of clarity that, hey, not everybody had the same upbringing, and how do we relate to people, and how do we break these cycles? Thank God for organizations like Harbor that come in and get involved. Were they your person?
So they helped me. So I actually don't remember how exactly I learned about them. But somebody had mentioned that I needed to go down there to the courthouse, and I needed to take my binder full of his behavior because my mother was a paralegal, and so she taught me always write everything down, because document.
Smart.
That's how you prove it. And I'm like, okay. And so I did that, and I went down there, and I was granted my domestic violence protective order immediately, and they helped me renew it, so it's still active, because
it's still a risk. Yeah. Well, and good for you, and thank God for those resources. People don't understand that Harbor. You should get Harbor on here. Kay Truja Johnson. Kay would be amazing.
If you make the connection, absolutely.
We'll do it as soon as we finish with this. Having Kay come and talk. Johnston County Harbor is the 3rd busiest shelter in the state of North Carolina. Exactly. So, right? And so they do so much amazing work. Ruth Anderson, I believe, is still their board chair, and there are just so many people involved. Dana Wooten's on that board. I think Mike Sims is on that board. A lot of just amazing people that I look to as mentors and role models that stay involved in that process. And we have a whole sexual assault program through Johnston Health that the nurses go in and they do the exams separately so that you're not just caught up in the ER traffic flow of all of it, and they work very closely with Harbor on that. So one of those things near and dear to my heart. That was one of the things I did as an ER nurse, is I was a sexual assault nurse examiner. And it takes a toll. I did my pediatric certification, but I was 1 hour short of completing it because it was stressful. It was very, very stressful to deal with some of those things, and I just decided I had the knowledge, you couldn't take that away, but I didn't want to be certified, because when I was certified, the doctors didn't have to get involved, and I felt like I needed them. It was big.
That's great.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
great, honestly.
Yeah.
I did listen to you on a podcast before, so I took this question from you.
Oh boy, okay.
And I loved it.
Okay.
So what was your ready moment that made you jump into entrepreneurship?
Oh, yes, that quote. I really need to laminate that and just keep it in my purse, and I should get it made into cards and turn it. It's not, I couldn't trademark it to somebody else's, but yeah, when I first got into leadership, there was this quote that I read that said that basically everything in the world has a ready moment, and if you miss that moment, you start to decline. And so when we talk about ready moments, starting my business wasn't an impulse decision. There was a lot of thought and prayer that went into it, and I was given the advice, pray for peace or no peace. I can give you advice all day long based on my life experience, but that doesn't necessarily translate well for you, because that might not fit your situation. And then you feel obligated, like, Melissa told me to do this, now I'm really going to do it. There's this whole thing. So she said, pray for peace or no peace, and so I had really prayed about leaving the marriage. Starting the company, I was like, God, I kept saying, I kept making excuses on why it wasn't time. And I kept saying to give me these moments where I know it's you. It's not my ego, I know it's you. And I call these the burning bush moments. And so just being in this building was a burning bush moment. So starting the business in Smithfield, there was nothing that, it looks like a strategic genius. For what I do, the fact that you can pull from North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, across North Carolina, all the way from Wilmington to, we have people come in from High Point, Greensboro.
Wow.
For training, yeah. So it's kind of crazy, but that wasn't me, that was a God thing. It was I kept getting pushed here and pushed to this building, and down to the point of we were looking for places to rent, places to move into, and we're riding around with a realtor, and we got up here to the stoplight, and I said, what about this? And my mom was with me, and she was like, don't ask. She's like, you can't afford this. You just left your husband. You got 2 small children. Who are you kidding, right? And I was like, I keep getting pushed to that building. Why do I keep getting pushed to the building? And the realtor looked at me, and she said, those units are in foreclosure, and the bank dropped the price on them yesterday. How do you...
That's a gift.
It's a burning bush, right? Yeah. It's a burning bush. So I was blessed in the fact that my parents had just sold part of a business, and they had capital gains taxes they really needed to reinvest, or they were just going to give it to the government. Guess what? The exact amount of money that was being asked for was exactly what they had to pay in taxes. Another burning bush. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
So there are so many of these stories that came along the way, because one of the things I would say also about entrepreneurship, I don't know if you experienced this or not, did you have some temptations where maybe something else looked easier to do, and so you considered leaving what you were doing to do something else?
Several times.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
And I have the ADHD, so I'd be like, yeah, and then I have to think it all the way through and be like,
Well, and sometimes I would act on it. There was actually a job I applied for, and I was like, oh my God, instead of starting my own company right now, I can go get this job. I'm going to make so much more money. It's going to be a 9 to 5. This is going to make sense. And it was like God slammed the door in my face and said, that was not for you. That was a distractor. That is not for you. So I think that's one of those things with entrepreneurs being... the tenacity, being tenacious with this and being focused. A lot of entrepreneurs are ADD-ish. We have that visionary, that visionary kind of kooky artist whole thing. So one of the other things I think that makes us successful is when we recognize we have to be a free spirit in some ways, but sometimes you really have to zone in and focus. Like you said, you really have to take it from front to back, and that's something we have to be intentional about, because we're not wired like that at all.
No.
We're wired completely different.
We're like, take the risk, let's do it, we can make it work. Get in there and go, okay.
Yeah, and I remember as I was literally verbalizing, because there's a decision, there's a moment when you make the decision, and then there's a moment when you tell other people, right? And so I called a guy friend of mine, and I'm like, dude, I'm getting ready to do the most insane thing ever. You got to talk me off the ledge. And I'm ready for him to be the voice of reason, right? And I'm like, I'm going to leave my husband, and I'm going to start my own business. And he said, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. Your life is getting ready to change forever. And I was like, Dave, That was not what I asked. I needed you to talk me off the ledge. And he was like, Melissa, your whole life is getting ready to open up. You're getting ready to step into what you were meant to do. And it was like, in that. And so then I was like, what are you doing though? Because I'm like, oh, I'm awesome. And he's like, yeah, I'm working with my friend to start a 911 system in South America. And I was like, of course you are. One up me. I'm over here like, you're creating world peace and I'm starting a business. But he has always been, it's not someone I stay in touch with closely, but he's a ride or die. Like if I call him and I need something or I just need a word of encouragement, he's like, don't forget who you are. And I'm like, thank God for those people, right?
100%. I've had the same best friend since I was 20. My daughter was born, so a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she lives in Charlotte, and when every time I call her, I'm like, hey, like when I first started my business, I would call her up and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm not making any money. And she's like, cool, it's called ebb and flow, calm down. And I'd be like, all right.
Ebb and flow, calm down. That's brandable. It's
ebb and
flow, calm down.
Oh, sorry, my eye
I
is
love
so
it.
watery today.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she's been a great help. I've hired her at points too to help me because I just can't do certain things.
Yeah.
She's always been a supporter. So you're right. And if I call her up and I told her, she was actually the one that was like, you really need to get out of this marriage because it's not healthy for anyone. And I called her one night and I was sitting in the closet at 4 a.m, like telling her everything that just happened. And like I'm trying not to cry about it, but she was what was like, leave.
And what does it take to be in the closet at 4 a.m. to make the decision? And
I didn't want them to hear me.
Again, well, and I get it. I get it completely. But you did it, and you're doing it.
Right, and I've
look
never
at all
looked
that
back.
you accomplished. Yeah, and you're going to use all of those experiences to help so many people. Like I can't think of the people that will be touched. Like this is totally not what we came on the podcast to do, right? And I'm good with that. Don't feel like we got to redirect. I think this is good stuff. But what I'm saying is somebody needed to hear this story and hear that they too needed to get out. Absolutely. They too need to get out. And what are the resources? So we've just talked about Harbor. So in the comment section of this podcast, there should be contact information about Harbor in there. How do we help people get to the next moment of where their ready moment is, right? Going back to that original question, miss that moment you start to decline. It's like, my best friend lives in the mountains, so western part of the state as well. Rebecca, she talks about like life and death. She was our ICU director. That's how I got to know her initially. Was she was working with the hospital, and she talks about life and death, and she says there are moments in life where you get graceful exits, and if you miss that, you hope you get another one, right? And it's the same kind of concept of if you miss that, it's like being on a freeway going 100 miles an hour. Like if you miss that exit, like are you going to be able? Is it a belt line or is?
See, that's what.
Are we going to California?
Absolutely, and I felt it in my soul. I cannot explain it, but I was like, it's now or never. It's exactly what happened to me, and so I went home that day and I had asked my daughter. I said, hey, can you watch the little one and your brother, because my son has autism. I was like, and I'll be right back. I'm going to go do this. So I can't explain it. I just felt like this was it. This was the moment, done. I had all my pictures, I had all my evidence, and it worked out so fabulously. I can't explain it.
It's a God thing.
Yeah, and it was like, if you don't jump now, and I don't know why that thought kept going, but again, burning bush.
Well, you don't know how it would have escalated next time.
Right.
Part of the work I did in college is, as an elective course, I created like a 6-week series of encouragement classes for like about, I don't know, I was what, 20, 21? But I created this series of classes for the local battered women's shelter in Greenville. And so I would go in there and talk about self-esteem and taking care of yourself and kind of how do we balance wearing all the hats when we go from mother to worker to daughter to sister to friend, like all these different things. Looking back, it'd be interesting to see my own curriculum now, knowing what I know now. There's no telling what I was doing. It was legit, but I look at it now. But I just remember, like when you said that to me, like it took my breath, because I remember I did this for about 6 months, and there was a woman who came through 3 different times. She would leave and she would go back. She would leave and she'd go back. So the first time she left, she unscathed. Second time, really beaten badly. Third time she came back, she'd been shot. And she's literally in one of these classes talking with us about whether or not she's going to go back to him because he really loves her. And I was like, he's going to kill you. He's going to kill you. And I'm young, so I don't have any life experience except like some of the things I saw growing up, right? And it was never to that. No one while I was standing there, got shot. We'll leave it there. So, you look at this and you just want people to have more and to have better. So, and entrepreneurship is a way to do it. When you find what are you really, really good at. There's this whole Venn diagram thing about living in your purpose. And it says, when you find what you're really, really good at, that the world needs, that people will pay you to do, then you're living in your purpose. Like where those lines overlap is your purpose, right? And then you don't know who you're ministering to when you're doing your work. Whether you're in a cleaning situation or I'm in a teaching situation, we just don't know how we're connecting with people to give them their next step, right? Or to just show them, not to give it to them, because it's not us to give it to them. It's a light that we shine. Like we turn the light on in the dark room and we go, there's your exit. There's the way. I don't know the answers for you, but I'm happy to shine light on what I can do to help you with that next moment.
That's really important too. I feel like networking and talking about stuff like that too is how you get there.
Oh yeah.
Because I was hiding it for a long time and kind of embarrassed about it, and I was like, you know what? Now this is 4 years out of it. And I'm like, no, I'm sharing my story because guess what? It happened to me. I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen anymore.
And you didn't deserve it.
And I didn't.
We think sometimes we tie up our value and our worth with what that abuser does. And so all of a sudden we think that I must have done something, especially if you experienced it more than once, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's this whole thing of if it's happened more than once, then it must be a me thing, not a them thing. And that's not necessarily the truth. But that's where the counseling comes in to help you see the patterns of what you attract and what you allow. Because again, the red flag doesn't go off. A normal person who hasn't grown up in that kind of environment would be like, "What is going on? This is not okay." Versus us, we're like, "Well,
I was like,
but he's got potential,
yes.
right?" Yeah,
so terrible. The fact that my family liked him, that was a big red flag. So I didn't realize it at the time. My daughter actually, she had to come to me and be like, "Listen, lady. If you don't get rid of him, I'll help you run the business. We're not going to do this." And I was like, I'm going to cry about it because honestly, I needed her to do that.
Yeah.
For me to get there.
And thank God, because that means her future is going to be different from yours, right? And that's the gift in it. Is I look at it as raising my kids. Is I want them to have better than I had. And so I have worked really hard. We're still going to screw them up. I mean, it's just life,
Yeah.
My kids, I'm sure one day they'll be like, and then my mom did this. I'll be like, you know what? But like my whole goal was to give them a better life without the trauma and the challenges that I faced. And when I look at my daughter, now you're going to get me emotional. When I look at my daughter, I tell people she is so much like me, but she hasn't had the trauma that has made her second guess herself. And because of that, she is unstoppable, which is exciting and terrifying, right? I can't wait to see what she's going to do as a result, because I'm like, wow. Because I've tried to raise her to be independent and strong, but also to be soft. Because when you grow up like we grew up, you don't always see the soft side, or it takes a lot to get to that side.
Oh, for sure. Right? It's made me very callous to the world, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's okay, because that's something I need to work on.
Yeah. Well, there's a pastor one time, she says, always work on getting better, not bitter.
Ooh.
I like that one. I know, I like that one. That's Pastor Rachel Campbell. She's the one that said, pray for peace and no peace. She said she wanted to be better, not bitter. Such an influence on me. They're out in California now, but I still follow them on social media because she and her husband Israel are just tremendous pastors and just so relatable. They weren't holier than thou. They were relatable, and I appreciated that.
I like that. I like when they're not like, I'm better than you.
Yeah, no. I don't have time for those people.
So moving forward, what are some of the common challenges that entrepreneurs face, and how can someone overcome them?
I think it goes back to what we were just talking about with the squirrel moments. As an entrepreneur, it takes time. Like, what people don't realize is I wish there was like this like moment that you could pull up and like freeze in time that showed the timeline of what they had to do, successful businesses, what they had to do to get there.
Yes.
Like, because it seems like they're like, oh my God, they just made it happen. I'm like, you haven't seen me fight, scrape, sweat, cry, vomit, laugh hysterically like I was losing my mind, drop to my knees in prayer and praise like over the last 12 years to make this happen today, and they think, oh, I'm like, no.
That's why we're doing this.
So when you look at it as a business, recognizing it doesn't happen overnight. My favorite quote I always use in Launch Joko is I tell people, Steve Harvey says that the dream is free. Yeah, the dream is free, but the hustle's sold separately.
Yep.
And a lot of people have a dream, they don't have the hustle. And that's why a lot of people start out as entrepreneurs, but most of them fail within the first 5 years because it takes time. I heard someone that was an entrepreneur one time. He said, really, it's the first generation's job to break their back to make it happen. It's the second and third generation that gets the benefits. Because then the path is paved, right? Then you're going through, you're building with it, because that's where I was going, is building a network, right? It is huge, building a network and getting to know people, so then you become a word of mouth referral instead of killing yourself and spending every dime you got on advertising and marketing. And if you take care of your clients, that happens for you.
Those are your natural referrals.
Yeah, yes, and I live and breathe by those. You know, that's what I love about social media, is you can say, I'm looking for someone who, right? And you get on there, and when people believe in you, they'll start believing. Look at Matt Gorman with Gorman Insurance Group. Have you interviewed Matt?
No. I'm very familiar with him.
Yes. Interview Matt. He is so dynamic, and he is the king of showing how network could work. You know, because I didn't know this guy from Adam a year ago. And now he is like one of my favorite go-to people. And I actually, you know, we tease each other. He says he looks to me. I'm like, I'm looking at you, buddy. Are you kidding me? Like, when it comes to networking, working in a room, charisma, like, he just was consistent. I was the other thing in entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Being tenacious and consistent. So that you're there. It's very easy when you're in business for yourself to decide, I'm just not going to work today. I'm not going to do this. And everybody goes, oh, that's the luxury of being an entrepreneur.
No.
Well, I do have that luxury. However, if I don't work, what happens?
There's no money.
There's no money. I'm not getting paid. So I tell people, you know, you pick your poison in that.
Absolutely. And I do pick my poison when it comes to that, because the reason I also wanted to start my business is so that I had control over my schedule. I didn't want someone else telling me, you're fired again. I cannot hold a job to save my life. I'm going to be honest. I can't do it. I can do it for 3 months, and then that's as far as it goes.
Did you just squirrel out?
Yeah, I get ADD, and if you ask me to sit down, okay, so I'll just tell you my story real quick. So I went to college to be a medical biller and coder, right?
God bless you.
Went to school.
Most boring job ever for your personality.
Yep. Yeah. Get the certificate, get the job. I'm there 2 weeks, and I was like, you want me to, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I'm not.
It's boring.
Yep. And
yeah.
so
and it's great, and there are people that are really great at that, and we need those people so that people can get paid and insurances can be billed, but it's not us.
No, and I realized that really quickly. And so I had started a cleaning company when I was 18, and I was like, sorry, let the truck drive by.
Yeah.
I was like, cool, this is what I'm gonna do, and then I don't want to say it, I failed. So, but I did that successfully because I learned what not to do.
There you go.
And so when I was...
And you were 18. What kind of maturity did you have? I didn't.
Well, I mean...
Some, but really.
To be honest, I still was a kid.
Yeah.
You know, I was still like just trying to, I'm going to make money and I have to get a real job.
Yeah.
Mostly trying to defy my father because he kept telling me I have to conform to society, and I was like, watch me.
Yeah, watch me. Yeah.
And here I am now, not conforming.
I love it. Yes, exactly.
But that's how kind of, excuse me, I realized that I have an entrepreneur spirit, and not only that, anytime I like doing something, I was trying to make a business out of it, and I was like, I know that's part ADHD, but also I have to be on my own time frame. I can't be on like a clock time frame.
Okay.
That drives me insane. So here we are.
Yes.
So when I started this cleaning company, what I did is
you can keep going.
okay, is that I decided when I was working at Walmart full time, 40 hours a week for $11 an hour, that I was never going to be able to leave that man. Never. He got upset that I got the job. Then he got even more upset when I got my stimulus check. And I quit that job. And I was like, we're not doing this no more.
Yeah, right.
I took that money, and again, that was my burning bush. It was like, hey, here I am. You're going to do it.
And you took that money and you did what with it? Because I cut you off. I got so excited.
Oh, I took that money and I went and I filed for my LLC. I bought the products that I needed, and I got insurance. And then I went to the Small Business Center over at Johnston County.
I was getting ready to talk about them. Yes.
And I said to them, tell me what I need to do, because this is happening. So she...
Oh, I got chill bumps all over.
Right?
Yes.
She like laid out everything, told me what I needed to do, how to register, all that stuff. So I'm doing this while I'm also dealing with that at home and getting told like all these nasty things about myself, and I'm doing that, and I'm like, cool, whatever, high five.
Yeah. That's the fuel. That's what people don't understand is when you grow up in a dysfunctional world, like people telling you can't do it, what happens is it lights a fire in us that no one else could light.
I'm glad you understand that, because my daughter always tells me like, why is it when someone pisses you off, you get something done. I'm like,
because you're like, you know what? I know this can't be true about me. And so, therefore, I remember I had someone one time, a guy came and we were doing a women's conference in Smithfield, and he was like, you've got 48 hours to turn this around or I'm pulling the plug on your event. And I looked at him and I smiled and I said, you don't even know the dragon you awoke. And he said, bring it. I said, it's been brought. And like he laughed because he was new to the community. And like in 48 hours, we had, I think he told me I had to have 50 people register for the conference. 48 hours, I had like 52 people register for the conference and I had 10 vendors. And I was like, stuff it. I was like, because this is happening and you're not going to tell me that we're not going to do this. Like, I was so mad. Like, that was the fuel. So,
absolutely.
I love it. Now, when you get back to this, as far as an entrepreneur, coming back to it, one of the things that can happen is if you're one of these visionary people, it becomes very, very tempting to get something started and it starts to work. And so you're like, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do something else. So I would say as an entrepreneur, my mother used to drive me insane. In fact, if she listens to this, she's going to laugh. My adopted mom, would say, Melissa, because I had started medicaltraining.me and I wanted to do this and I was like, oh yeah, and then I can do this. And she's like, stop it. She was like, be good at making hamburgers and hot dogs before you add chicken and fish sticks. And I would get so mad. I was so sick of hearing that. I thought I was going to strangle her because I was like, I don't want to hear this. You're stifling me. She said, if you want to be successful, once you get started, you have to make sure that it is hardwired and it is sustainable before you can go on. So the entrepreneurs that I see that struggle get started on something and then they try to do this and then they try to do this and then they try to do this. And there's part of it is because they're a creative spirit. And I tell people where I would be most successful in this world is if you let somebody like you and me sit down as a think tank all day and we just spit ideas out of people. And I'll be like, go do that. Go forth and prosper. Yeah. All right. Who else needs an idea? Because that's the way our brain works. The problem is that you've got to have something sustainable in that. I think the other reason entrepreneurs do that is as you get started, you probably still, even though you said you knew how hard it was going to be, you didn't realize it. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden there's this fight or flight panic of self-preservation that says, I better take a shotgun approach and I'm going to do this, this, and this. And see, it's like throwing Jell-O up against a wall and seeing what sticks, mm-hmm. right? It's like, what are we going to do with that? So as entrepreneurs, we have to be really, really careful and very mindful. That's how the Launch Joko program started. Was looking at entrepreneurs and how most businesses fail within the first 5 years. I think it's like 65% within the first 3 years. So we started talking at the Clayton Chamber about what we could do to impact this. And as soon as Dana Wooten told me about Launch My City, I was like, I'm in. And I was like, I'm not going to run it, but I'm going to be in. And God laughed at me. He was like, no, Melissa, this is yours. And so, but that's literally how we started, is because we recognized that entrepreneurs usually don't have a board of directors or a boss.
Oh.
Right? I mean, if you
true.
think about it, we don't. Therefore, every single decision falls on us, which is a blessing, but it's also a curse.
It is. You can get, what is it called, decision paralysis.
Yeah, analysis paralysis,
That's
right?
it, yeah.
Analysis paralysis. Either that or you get so flighty that you focus on the things you want to do really, really well and that you do really, really well, and you don't focus on the other things. So there's this fantastic book called The E-Myth, which I thought was like about computers or something. It's the entrepreneurial myth, and it's like a parable. It's a short book, and my first mentor, that was the first book I read, he's like, I need you to go read this book. And it was about this lady that was an incredible baker, but her bakery was failing, and she was so angry. She was like, I make the best cakes in town. But when she went back and looked at it, she did make the best cakes in town, but she didn't know a damn thing about running a business. And so as a result, she had to go back and learn those things. That's where JCC Small Business Center, Susanna Ross, get her on here.
We just had her on Monday.
Did you? See.
And she told us to come see you.
Oh my God, really?
We'll
yeah. Suzanne has been a gift, right? And before Suzanne, there was a lady there named Pat Collette, and Pat
That's
was
who I met with.
Okay, so Pat was a help for me. When I went to the Small Business Center with Pat, I thought Pat was going to tell me who to do business with. And she's like, no, that's not my job. Right? But I was like, hey, so you're going to hook me up? And she's like, not what I do. I'm not a fairy godmother. Right? I'm not a genie. But getting that direction to go in, that's where, and like with the Launch Joko program, the entrepreneurship program that we've got, it is very structured to help. So last night we had the pitch competition, or not competition, but the pitches where everybody in the class, we have this year, we have 17 people represented 15 businesses. And so out of those 17 people, 15 were there because we had 2 businesses that were sick. 'Tis the season. And so they just standing up and listening to them and hearing what they sounded like, because to get into the program they had to do a pitch, but then finishing the program and them saying, this is the reason that the community needs my business, and this is my competition, and this is why I'm better than them, and this is my profit margins as a result, and how much my business has grown, and where my business is projected to grow in the next 2 years. Like, I literally sat there welling up in tears after, each one got up and told us. And one was like, I was going to expand my business probably mid-time next year. We were going to expand our facility, our location. And she was like, yeah, right now. We started moving in today. And I'm like,
yes.
And you just have this moment and that's what entrepreneurs need. Is I think we need that layer of accountability to come in. And somebody to hold us to the fire, because otherwise we do all the things we want to do and we don't. And bookkeepers, entrepreneurs, I'm gonna give a shameless shout out right now for High Point Bookkeeping.
We just had them on the podcast.
Did you? Oh my God, Lori and Stuart Denham are amazing. I think as an entrepreneur, usually the first thing entrepreneurs will tell you they suck at is the books, and I don't want to go to jail. I wear orange well, but that doesn't mean I want to wear it every day. So, and in Johnston County, you have to wear pink, and I don't want to wear pink scrubs every day in prison. So in jail, in Johnston County Jail. So don't want to do that. So having a bookkeeper in there and then having that layer of accountability, and something that makes them so special is they could just do your books for what they pay and they could just walk away, but they make such a personal touch because they get personally invested in your success and your well-being, and then you just feel so supported and so loved.
Yes, and they gave me some really good advice on how to move forward with mine, because I was like, this is what I'm doing, I don't really know. And she's like, okay, but this is what you need to do. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, because I'm not going to think of that.
And talk to them. They're affordable. So talk to them about what kinds of things, and they can come in at different layers of assistance in that. But I can tell you, because of the way they did my bookkeeping and helped me see numbers this year, I actually got a little bit of money back, because they, like, where are my deductions? Like, what things are there? And doing it the right way, paying some taxes up front as a business instead of waiting until the end of the year to get slammed. And so
for sure, because it's like our off season.
Yeah. So I'm like,
Like the first 3 months of the year, we are not on anyone's list at all, because we're cleaners. We've done all of our job from October until December, like 24th, to be honest. And after that, they're just like, we spent way too much money. Can you just come back in like April? I'm like, okay.
Really?
Yeah, so that happens a lot to us, but it's good because we work so hard.
Did you need the downtime?
We do, and we welcome it. And my daughter's birthday's in January, so we're always able to go take a trip and like do stuff and things that we can't get to while all the holidays.
Well, and what I was thinking is like the Chamber of Commerce does their Total Resource campaign as branding opportunities.
Let's talk about it.
So that will be over by the time this comes out, but it's great information. So the way that the Clayton Chamber does this is they sell all of their branding opportunities / sponsorships in a 6-week period. And at first I wasn't a big fan of that, because I was like, well, what happens if I want to spend money later? Well, they have to set up a budget. And for all the amazing programs that they have, they need to know how much money they've got to spend on these different things. Do they have the finances to support the staff that's coming in and doing all of this? So I am on the Total Resource campaign right now, and what I was thinking is, I need to get you to look, or if you already work with somebody else, that's fine, but look at what you could do in maybe February that can get you branding opportunities to put you back, so that maybe you pick up a little more business in February and March before you boom in April. Like, what kind of interest could you pull in? Because I understand, like, slowing down, wanting to rest, but after January you're probably like, okay, I needed to pick up some more.
Absolutely.
So they've got this new sponsorship this year. I'm just so excited about it. It's called Try It Out Tuesday, and Dana comes out and works with you. So you could come out and totally get her to come out and do a cleaning site with you. And it would just be like a short section of it, but show and what makes you different. Why would I call you instead of the people that I could pull off of Craigslist? Or why the branded company that's been around for 8 million years that has 1 million different contractors. Like, what makes you different? What makes you unique in that? And so she'll come in and do that with you, and it gives you a chance to showcase your business. So people go, hey, that's the kind of person I want. That's the kind of person I want in my personal space. When people are in your personal space, like
Yes.
there are moments, I'm sure that would be a whole podcast would be about the things you've discovered.
Well, that's actually what I was going to originally do with the podcast, is just tell stories about things that have happened. But then I thought, out of context, no one's going to really understand.
Yeah.
So I kind of held on to it, and then that's when the idea came, because I was listening to another podcast, and I was feeling so connected, and I felt like this is really great information. Like, the education's free, you just have to pay attention.
Right.
So,
Oh, that's a whole thing too.
Lots of little isms on
I love it.
And another one that that variety is the spice of life. And that's, I always preach that too.
Absolutely.
So making sure that you are in all kinds of things.
Spicy.
A little spicy.
Make sure
I'm very spicy.
Yes, very spicy.
But that's what I wanted to do with this podcast, is that I was like, I want to connect, I want to inspire, I want to educate, I want people to go on this journey, of podcasting, because I've never done it before. So you get to see me be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
And you also get to see me learn how to podcast, and we've got video equipment now. Hey guys.
Yes.
So,
awesome.
And we were able to get some sponsors, so we got better equipment.
That was the thing. I was like, do you have sponsors? I was like trying to think of sponsors.
We are, we have one right now. We are looking into more. What we do is we sell ad space.
Yeah.
So it's 10 to 30 seconds, and you get it put in the podcast.
Nice.
It's $100 a week. And then also, depending on where you're at, if you are nationally, we'll post it in Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're on YouTube now. And then if you're not, we'll just do a Facebook. That way you get a shout out there.
So you get there. And then they get the,
And then
awesome.
people can connect with you, and they've heard your story. Now they're like, oh, that's another thing. As an entrepreneur, nobody really cares about our stories. They care about what we can do for them. So I'm humanizing the idea that, like, we're more than just a business.
Well, and I was gonna say, and you hit on a very big thing, is especially like something post-pandemic has changed, and with millennials coming of age, there's this whole "what's your story?"
Yes.
So your loyalty to a brand and a business is only as loyal as your most recent experience, which goes back into why how you treat people as an entrepreneur and how you manage any kind of potential conflict is so important, because people may have been loyal for 20 years and then all of a sudden one thing happened and all of a sudden they're willing to switch brands. And really, like, when we think about the people that we support, a lot of people are making conscious decisions today to support people because they have a great business, and I really like them. My business, being here 11, 12 years, I have some people. I have one lady, she flies in from Texas to do our training. Insane, right? She happened across us once. She loved us. She loved how we did it different. She loved the backstory of how this company started. And therefore, every 2 years, she flies in from Texas to do her training. She's got some relatives somewhere nearby. She's like, I'll just turn it into a visit with them as well. She said, but I don't want to go anywhere else to do my training. As long as you're open, as long as I'm doing these things, I'm coming back to you. I'm like, shut up. And that is a loyalty that you can't buy.
No, and that leads me to one of my questions, is how do you measure success?
Success for me in the classroom, I literally tell them, I don't care whether you pass or fail a written test. I care whether or not you're going to be willing to respond, and whether you're going to be willing to make a bigger impact as a result of what you've learned today. So for me, I think that varies from person to person. If I have someone brand new to information, then they're getting a clue. Right? And then I've got people, I'm doing a training this afternoon with some pediatric dentists that have been pediatric dentists for over 30 years. There's not going to be a whole lot I can teach them, but I'm going to be going back and reinforcing, okay, your day-to-day activities are to take care of these situations. You're not expecting for the bad things to happen. So I'm here to review how you manage those bad things when they happen. So their version of success is, hey, how much did I remember from years past? Did Melissa lend any different perspective than from the training that I've had in the past, right? Because it's me today. But, yeah. Lucky them.
Right? So how would you like your company to grow?
So interesting. So medicaltraining.me. Right now we train about 3,500 people a year in everything from first aid and CPR all the way up to advanced life support, right? It is a really cool business. It is a really terrible entrepreneurial idea, because you can be amazing and people only need you once every 2 years.
Didn't think about that.
That's a lot of people. It's a lot of people, and the profit margin isn't as big as anybody would think, because you want it to be fair. You're thinking about the clientele you're serving. How we grow in that is just growing our network of more people to train with. I have anywhere from 12 to 20 contractors that work with us on a varying basis to come in and help teach these as well. I handpick them. They have to have the knowledge base, but they also have to have people skills, so that they can relate to everyone in the classroom. So scaling that, growing that. I do not want a franchise. I've been asked multiple times, do you want a franchise? Do you want to build additional locations? No, because I guess that's the squirrely artist side of me, is I'm like, yeah, we've got this figured out. This is great. But expanding that, how do we work with more daycares, more dentist office, more industrial companies, same day surgery centers, like our client list is varied with that. I'm launching a second brand right now.
Ooh,
so
let's talk about that. Shit. My battery's died. We don't know when. That's okay. You have it on camera, right?
Yep.
Pause.
Do we have more?
Yes.
Oh
What
my
kind of battery? I was
gosh.
gonna say, do you-
That's interesting. Well,
Do you want me to pause
Pause.
this?
Yeah.
and we're back.
We are back.
Tell us about your other endeavor that you were.
So, again, one of those God moments where I told God the timeline, and I said, well, I'm not going to do this other thing until my kids graduate from high school. Thomas is a senior, Laney's a sophomore. So, again, the timeline is pushed. But one of the things that has evolved out of the things that I've done as an entrepreneur here and getting involved in Johnson County is I've done more and more leadership, right? I've done more and more leadership work and talking. In 2018, I went back and got my John Maxwell certification as a speaker, trainer, and coach. I went down to Orlando. That was interesting. Down there for that. And the reason that I did it really, again, wasn't strategic. Again, everybody's like, oh my God, this is such great strategy. It's God. Because there was nothing about it. I went to do that to figure out how I could be a better influencer on the people that work with me and how could I better myself. And I couldn't afford to go back to grad school. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to go do this. This will be cool. And so what came about as a result is people started going, wow, the leadership stuff that you were teaching in healthcare, like other non-medical people need that, right? I've got a friend named Heidi that's this visionary. I'm having dinner with her tonight, and she's like, this is your future. And I'm like, nah, it's okay. She was like, you're not listening to me. Like, you need to be doing this. So I started dabbling some in just professional development classes like soft skills, communication, conflict resolution, understanding, appreciating differences in people, how to lead and coach, how to deal with burnout and resilience, like all these people skills that ironically today, again, not being a visionary, that is the number one demand in the job market. Is 65% of employers say that their employees need more of these skills, right? And that there's more of this professional development training coming in. So I started doing that, and it's just grown. I've had some really cool opportunities to speak at conferences, which I love speaking. The bigger the crowd, the better I do. There's something about, once they're all blurred out there together, you can't see the individual faces. The smaller the crowd, the more you can read the room. And like if somebody's making a funny face, that will completely shut you down sometimes, or it can, right? I've gotten better about that. But I'll go, oh my God, I must be completely off base because this person looks so annoyed. Versus when there's 250, 300 people in the room, you just go with it, right? And I'm like, hey, we got this. I'm looking at bright lights. So we're just going to pretend like everybody's having as much fun as I am doing this. And so I've just really fallen in love with the speaking side of things and the people development and coaching side of things, and people very similar to what I'm sure you're hearing as well is when you've got a really strong backstory, other people need to hear it. Mm-hmm. My mom and I always have this discussion of like, how much of my personal life do I need to share? Because like, she says, you don't need for everybody to hear a sad story to make you successful. And I'm like, I agree. But there are some people that need to hear parts of the story to see that, you know what, just because their life looks like this right now doesn't mean it has to look like that forever.
Yes.
Right? And so there's this moment of like encouragement where I just want to connect with people and I want them to help them find the best version of themselves, right? So doing this training as medicaltraining.me becomes very confusing to companies hiring me that aren't medical, or people who aren't in Johnston County and know, oh yeah, that's Melissa and medicaltraining.me is her business, but she also is a leader in this community and she is a great speaker. So
a lot of people told me that. They were like, you need to have her on because of those reasons. So
gracious, thank you. I'm just doing my part, right? I'm doing my part. And So as we went to launch this brand, I wanted to name it something else. And my brother, who is my baby brother, is like one of my biggest cheerleaders. He's like, sis, people are looking for you. Why do you keep hiding your name? And I'm like, they're not looking for me. He's like, they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're asking for Melissa. So if you go now online, you can see melissaoverton.com, which is...
And we will share that
Oh my gosh.
with the episode.
Yeah. So what we did there is we were able to delineate, separate from medicaltraining.me, what I can do as a speaker, what I can do as a coach, be it one-on-one, be it groups, book study facilitations, or just coming in and teaching classes. And so that's the part. And having Stuart and Lori has been great because they've been tracking medicaltraining.me income and the melissaoverton.com income. We track those separately, and that business has already grown by 50% this year. So we're excited. It's coming along. I'm putting all the money back in the company, so don't expect me to be, bling blinging anywhere, because that's not going to happen. It takes time. It takes hustle.
It does.
Right, to make these things happen. But I'm excited about that next opportunity because I literally just finished my first draft of a book. So yeah.
That's super exciting.
So maybe I can come back and talk about that once I get ready. It needs a lot of edits, but I really hesitated on whether or not to write a book on leadership. And so, yeah, it's me.
Oh,
Okay, it's me.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I paused it.
There's the blooper. That's my mom. We should have had her come in and say, hey.
Well, hey, Mom.
Khaki. Oh, she's already out. She's born with a jet in her tail. That's what my grandma said.
That is...
Yeah, isn't that
That's
funny?
such awesome
Yeah.
things
I
to
know,
say.
right? That's Choco speak for you.
That's why I
So,
moved
yeah,
here. To
right,
hear all those things.
Right, to hear all the isms, yeah. Dana Wooten is the best for talking about all the Southern isms. Like, she cracks me up, all the different things. So, yeah, so, what was I talking about? I completely lost myself. I was talking about all the things.
Speaking.
Oh, public speaking and...
It's okay, see,
If
distraction.
it was, I was gonna say, if it was important, it'll come back to me.
That's true.
But yeah, so that's how. Oh, the book. So I didn't want to write a book. Don't want to write a book. What? That takes concentration, right? Can't somebody just get my ideas? I just need a ghostwriter to
I was
hang
gonna
out with
say,
me, right?
ghostwriter.
Yeah, because I can afford that. So God looks after children and idiots. So I managed to sit down and write a book, and it was really important to me that as I was writing it, it's not just another book to put on the shelf. Like, what was I going to do that was going to make it different, and what was I going to do to make it applicable? I have a real problem with people coming in and doing any kind of speaking and education that gets you excited and leaves you with nothing. I'm like, you just made me hungry and there's nothing to eat. So this book is really packed with a lot of, after every chapter there's like a stop and reflect moment.
Ooh,
Of like, okay, now that you read this, what resonated with you? What are you going to do with this information? Like really drilling it down so that when you do this book, it's not meant to be a sit in one weekend read. This is a read,
No book
apply,
club.
read, apply. Yeah, if it's a book club, it's a spread out book club, right? Because you're talking about this, and it kind of ties in. Well, it very much ties into a lot of the teaching that I do. And it takes all my critical care experience and marries it into kind of exciting scenarios.
I cannot wait. So we're going to have you come back on the podcast
Please
after
do.
and talk to us about that.
Yes,
And the
would
impact
love
it's
to.
made and all of that, because I feel
So
like this is a
excited.
really big deal.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's my life or it's real right now.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, it just, and I tell you what, it seems like the further you get along, the louder the voice gets sometimes. So we really have to tell her to back off, So,
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've something I learned in therapy was I say, those are not my thoughts.
Oh, I like that.
Those are not my thoughts. Those are
I like
someone
that.
else's thoughts, and I'm not going to think them.
I like that.
And I was like, okay.
I'm gonna take that.
I'm glad that we did this today. There's a lot to
Yes.
talk about.
Yes.
So, do you have any advice to give anyone who is looking to jump into entrepreneurship?
Get in touch with the JCC Small Business Center. First thing, Suzanne Ross is phenomenal. She is there as a resource. She can also get you started on the track for Launch Joko, the entrepreneurship program.
I just applied last night, I'm going to be honest.
I was going to ask you. I was like, no pressure. I don't want to put you on camera and ask, but
I did last night, guys. And
yes.
what is it, September 19th they close, I think?
I can't remember.
Something
That
to that
sounds
effect.
about right. Yeah, one of those days.
Yeah.
It may be the end of September, but I don't know.
I feel like
Yeah,
she
it's
said
one of
9 or
those things.
19.
But yeah. So basically what we do is we open up applications in like mid-July, and then we close them somewhere around late September to make the selection, so that program, it starts in January. So we've got a whole selection process. But it's a game changer for an entrepreneur. And if you're not in Johnston County, there are lots. If you go to launchmycity.org, that will show you all the different launch programs, because there's one in just about every township in Wake County. I believe Rocky Mount is doing one now. Wilmington, maybe. Durham County has programs. So there, and this is a nationwide program. This is a nationwide concept that we brought in. So I'd love to do a whole different separate podcast on just launch ticket. Like, let's just sit down and talk, why not? It's the Dusta show, and Melissa shows up. So, getting into something like that, so that as you're getting started, you're not alone. You understand, you gotta know when to hold on. Know when to fold on, right? So, like, having people that can listen and tell you, like, no, go, or are you insane? You're losing money. This is, you need to pivot. Maybe you don't have to give up your dream altogether, but having someone out there to help you see that's not emotionally biased.
Yes,
right?
that is so
it's
important.
not emotionally biased. It can come in and go, this is a great idea, or this sounds like fun, but this isn't going to make you successful. This isn't going to pay your bills, right? You've got to keep the lights on. So that's my advice.
No, absolutely. It's great advice. Mine, I always tell people, do it stupid, because you'll figure it out as you go.
Yes. I love the fact that you said when you were 18 you failed forward, right? That's a whole John Maxwell concept, is failing forward. And yet you've got to, and they say that if you haven't failed, then your dreams weren't big enough.
That's
so
true.
Not everything I've done has taken off right away, right? Not everything that I've done has worked immediately, and there are just so many hurdles. It's a marathon. It's a marathon,
yes.
And you got to train for it, and you got to have the provisions to self-preserve and to be successful along the way. And so it takes a village.
It does, and I'm glad that you said that about the marathon. One of my favorite rappers, he is an independent artist, and he literally raps about being an entrepreneur.
Oh my God, hook me up.
Connor Price, he's amazing. He actually started a podcast, which I just found out about like 2 months ago, that is very similar to what I'm doing, and I'm like, this is so weird. Like, I love him, and he made me feel like I could do this, and that I'm like, that's his whole thing. Like, pave your own way, don't let someone get in the way, don't listen to what they say, you got this.
Oh my gosh.
And he's amazing. So
and you need to go on his, and he needs to come on yours, and y'all need to cross promote.
I just went and saw him in Philadelphia back in April for my birthday present.
Okay,
And I was like, oh my God, because I like raps.
I love hip hop. Like, nobody knows that. Like, people that know me know that, but like, if you look at me, they're like, she likes country music, and I'm like, no. Is that how Dusta Rhymes came about?
So yes, actually,
because I was hoping it was, but I was like, I don't want to like pigeonhole you, but I was like, oh my God, because Busta is like.
Well, that's actually how. So whenever I was doing my 30 seconds and all these like networking groups, I wanted to stick out like a crooked tooth. I really did. And so I thought, okay, like how am I going to do that? Yeah. So I did this thing where everything ends in a rhyme. It's a win every time.
Yeah.
And so I just started like rapping and rhyming about grime and dirt and.
I love you.
Everything.
I love you so much right now.
Well, thank you. Yes. I love you too. I'm so glad we did this today. But somebody had made fun of me and they're like, oh, you're like Busta Rhymes, but Dusta because you clean. And I was like, sold.
Yeah.
Took it.
I don't even know your other name. Like, that's just how I know you. So I'm like, there you go. Right.
I put it on my business cards. Everybody, just because of that, would hire me.
Yeah.
And they'd remember me. And I've got so many compliments. And I'm like, you know what? Create a character for your business. That's what I did for a podcast. You know, I'm a character.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, I started BNI as another thing for entrepreneurs, depending on your business. Like what you're doing with your business. So I joined BNI, and I had to do that 30-second commercial, and I got really, really nervous, and I just stood up and I was like, my name is Melissa. I'm a medical trainer, me, and we teach people how to save lives. So if you want to know how to save lives, it's 2 things. It's really nip a line or where they're supposed to be and make the jello jiggle. And they were like, what? And I was like,
I love that.
So people, like, I tell people, when your heart goes from beating blood, it turns into a jello jiggling. And like, the most important thing you can do is compression. So like, literally, I just grabbed my boobs and just started pushing. And they were like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm doing CPR. And they're like, that is very graphic. And I was like, it wasn't meant to be graphic. It wasn't meant to be graphic at all. I'm talking about saving a life, and and where they're supposed to be, because nobody needs it here or down here. And they're like, oh my God, she's making making it worse. But it's stuck, right? It's stuck. And so a lot of people from early on remember me. I don't think I've used that in a long time, but
It's
a lot of people early on, they're like, oh my God. And so I literally have some students, because of how I explain it, they'll say, are you the jello jiggling lady? Are you the jello jiggling CPR
That's so
lady?
funny.
So that was my thing. So there you go. Fun fact.
Okay, well, so last thing I'm going to ask.
Yes.
What is your best networking tip?
Don't expect to make all the connections at once. It is farming, not fishing. That was something I learned from BNI.
Yeah.
It is farming, not fishing. You don't go in, if you go in and you give everybody in there a business card, and I call it drive-by networking, like drive-by shooting.
I
It's
do the
drive-by
shotgun.
Yeah, that's great, except that's just going to go in a stack with everything else. Versus it may take you coming back to that same networking group 2 or 3 times for us to start talking, but then I'm getting to know you. And then it goes back to the branding thing, is I want to do business with you because I like you and because I know you do a good job, right? And so that doesn't happen overnight. And I'm like, I want people to realize how awesome I am right now. But no, and not everybody needs you right away. So the art of networking is building a relationship, so when they do need somebody, they know
think
somebody.
of you.
And that's been the fun part of what I do now. I tell people I feel like Oprah when I'm able to make those connections with people, because they're like, Melissa, do you know somebody? I'm like, I got a girl, I got a guy, and I'm like, you'll get a connection, and you'll get a connection, and I can't be giving away free cars or anything, but I'll give you a connection, and that's the key to networking. And actually, that's what grows your influence. I don't do that to grow my influence, but because I do it, it grows my influence, right? Because then all of a sudden they're like, you know what, Melissa really hooked me up. So if I need anything else, I want to go talk to Melissa, right? I want to go talk to Dusta. Who does she know? She's had all these people on her podcast. How do I connect with that? And then later on, it's going to pay back because somebody's going to remember what they need and go, oh yeah, of course.
That's
Matt Gorman.
Yeah.
Going back to Matt, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's like the best mouthpiece out there for your business. When he believes in you, I'm like, heck yeah. And I'm like, dude, I want to pay that forward to you too.
Absolutely.
So, and then as I got to know him, I was like, this guy's pretty cool. Maybe I'm going to move all my business to him. And I did. So that's the way it works.
Know, like, and trust. I agree with that.
Know, like, and trust. I like that.
Yeah, it's
Very
BNI
good.
thing. That's what I
Yeah.
learned when I was.
There
That's
you go.
when I started out in was BNI, and
Yeah.
that's one thing I learned was
Yeah.
first of all, know who your ideal client is, because
Yes.
that was hard for me. I
Because
was
not everybody is your client.
No, they are
Yeah.
not, and it took me a while to realize. So we are a luxury housekeeping company. We're actually switching over to commercial. Just trying to do commercial.
Congratulations.
Only.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, when I first started the business, I was like, "We're going to do commercial," and the pandemic happened, and I was like, "We're
not
going to pivot.
Yeah, we're gonna pivot. Yeah.
We're going to pivot." So we ended up doing that and became like Alice from the Brady Bunch, and then now here we are 4 years later, and I'm like wanting to do the commercials. What I started out with,
Okay.
I try not to get the ADHD and the bug and all that. I know that I can do housekeeping.
Well, and can you expand your group so that maybe it's 2 different divisions, so that you can still keep
Yes.
your luxury residential, but you can pick and choose so that everybody going back, and not everybody has to be your client. My mentor shocked me the first time I called him, and I said, I had to tell him no. And he said, good for you. I was like, why did you say good for you? I told him no. He's like, Melissa, you don't have to say yes to everything. My mom says you can't be the best, the cheapest, and the fastest. She said, you can be 2 of the 3. But you can't be all 3.
Oh, I need to meet your mother. So
I know,
really,
right?
really-
Yes,
yeah.
I'll be happy if she's still
Okay.
here. I'll introduce. She's amazing.
She sounds awesome.
She's amazing.
Well, thank you for letting us come out and do this. We're gonna have a corporate
Yeah.
reel because messing
I
up
love
is the
it.
fun part.
I love it. It's all the good stuff. That's
So-
all the good stuff.
Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next week with another amazing story on Down Home Dirt.